Roger, I'm an alcoholic. October 11th, 1978 is my sobriety date, and the way I achieved that was putting my pathetic set of ideas through the 12 steps. Coming Home's the title for tonight. And everyone's going to go back to a house tonight, or an apartment or a condo. Everyone's going back to a house, but everyone's not going back to a home. Everyone's not going back where they feel safe, where they belong, right? And we grow up in a culture that tells us all the answers to our problems are out here. So we spend a lot of our life's energy earning money, earning appreciation, earning applause, earning love, earning sex, earning cars, earning houses, earning boats. And along the way, we become encased in a bunch of ideas and attitudes that don't serve us well. Selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, fear, I'm not safe, shame, I'm not lovable, right? Resentment, anchored in my past, regret, remorse, fear about what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month. Am I safe again, right? All of that stuff. And what A is saying is, deep down in every one of us is the fundamental idea of the Creator, right? Fundamental idea of God. That's what we're doing here. That's what this is all about. It's not about not drinking or not obsessing about someone else's drinking or not doing drugs. It's about the search for my relationship with the God of my understanding. That's the whole trip. And you don't have to buy that in the beginning. You just have to buy that you've got a problem that's created unmanageability in your life. And the rest will reveal as you go along. The Buddhists have an expression, the face you had before you were born. The face you had before you were born. And that's what we're talking about coming home to, our essential us. Jesus taught the divinity of man. AA talks about the fundamental idea of God in here. Same idea. Same idea. What they're saying is, deep down in here somewhere, under all the noise and under all the thinking, and under all the distorted conceptions and attitudes and things that have brought us to our knees, there's a power, there's an energy that we can access that'll transform that. But you hear things, you hear, well, I don't know if you hear, I've heard, there. I heard, you've heard a lot of weird things that didn't make sense to me. Like meeting makers make it. Meeting makers make meetings. Step takers make change, right? Meeting makers make it. So I'm going to meetings. And then they said, I heard other stuff like, oh, don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle. Right? And I literally would look at my watch and I'd sit for 5 more minutes. And I'd walk out going, just what I thought, no miracle for Roger, right? Whether you practice a faith or the 12 steps, which is another form of a faith, whatever you practice, it has to be demonstrated in your life. It's no different than saying, I did a kick-ass third step, and I have turned my will and my life for the care of God, and I have not done another thing since. And I'm wondering why the shift isn't happening. My life isn't getting better. My experience was I did that. I had a one-step program, and my life got progressively worse while I was sitting in meetings with people like you. And I just couldn't figure it out. I thought, I'm in the meeting, come on. Where's mine? That's another one of those things we're trying to escape. Entitlement. Don't I deserve this? I mean, it was such a heroic thing to get sober, wasn't it? I'm laying all this incredible stuff aside, like jail, internal bleeding, divorce, restraining orders. I'm setting all this aside for the promise of what you're offering me. What is that, Where is mine? Where is mine? I'm not participating in the process. It's the same with a faith-based person. I can declare Jesus Christ my Lord and Savior, and if I don't have any actions that comport with that idea, nothing changes. That's why I asked Jesus to take my pain. I asked Jesus to take my drinking. I asked God, my understanding of God in the third step. I asked God for help. I asked God for salvation. I asked God to be lifted out of this misery, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. And I'm thinking, I'm getting screwed. That's what I'm thinking. But the thing that I needed to understand and grasp was, that's fine, but I have to participate in a process. I have to co-create with God, if you want to use that phrase. I have to cooperate with the process to get the change. Does it make any sense? Good? It's helpful. So, we got a 12-step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, try to carry this message to other alcoholics and practice these principles in all your affairs. I'm going to hone in the middle one. The spiritual experience is very clearly laid out in the back of the book, and it says, have you had a personality change? Any example of a personality change, a shift in the way you're seeing things, a shift in the way you're acting, and it might be something, if you're like me, it might be something as crude as, Brian got in my face and called me out on some of my bullshit, and I'm looking at him, we're about this far apart, and I'm thinking, I got an urge to lay my hands on him. And what they taught me, the early guys taught me, put your hands in your pocket and make a fist. Put your hands in your pocket and make a fist. And then when I try and throw down on Brian, I get my fist stuck in my pocket, and it causes me to remember, don't do that. So I'm walking away from Brian, I'm not happy. I'm pissed. I'm planning his murder. But I didn't do anything because they said, don't do anything, don't commit, right? So I'm walking away, and as I go through the turmoil of the conversation, I realized that was a different reaction. There would have been a time I would have turned him into a spot on the sidewalk just for looking at me wrong. That's what they're talking about. I'm starting to show up for work consistently. I have work. I'm becoming self-supporting. What a concept, right? I paid off my tickets, most of them, or the ones I'm most sure of, right? Of course, I paid them off when I got arrested. I didn't pay them off out of the being a responsible citizen. I had a collection in my glove box because I frankly did not believe in the ticketing process, and almost all of them were really rare and unusual circumstances. And I felt that I was clearly misunderstood and being picked on. So I was just throwing in the glove box. I'm doing fine with that, except here's the problem. The authorities don't see it the same way. So I'm hightailing it back from St. Cloud after a gig one night, and I was under 100 miles an hour, I know that. And the lights came on. And the guy pulled me over, and he ran my plates. That's what they do. And he asked for my driver's license, and I showed it to him, and I showed him. And he's talking to me, he says, so, in a hurry? As a matter of fact, sir, I am in a hurry. And now I'm going to have to even drive faster because you pulled me over, right? No. And he says, just a second. And he goes back to the squad, and he comes back and says, you'll be coming with me. I said, pardon me? I'm out in the middle of somewhere between St. Cloud and Minneapolis. You'll be coming with me. I have plans. Your plans have changed. So I get in the squad, he takes me into town, and I get hooked up with a paddy wagon. And the paddy wagon's driving all over town in the middle of the night picking up people. And I'm thinking, God, these are criminals. Who robs a lumber yard at 2 in the morning? What the hell? I need some 2x4s, come on. I grab those nails. It's just like, what? And I'm sitting there, what is a guy like me doing with these lowlifes, right? And then they handcuff you in the paddy wagon. And I'm thinking, hey, if there's an accident, this thing rolls over, gets hit, catches fire, I'm really screwed, right? So pay your tickets. Pay your tickets. Man's laws. Man's laws. You can choose to violate or not. You can choose to speed, and the natural consequences of speeding is getting a ticket. You won't get a ticket every time, will you? No, that's why you think you can speed, because most of the time you don't get a ticket. Is it 3 miles an hour over? Is it 4? I just need to make sure there are still people passing me. That's the speed limit, right? Man's laws. Break man's laws, you get consequences. That's what it is. God's laws. You break God's laws, you get consequences. I don't believe in God, so that can't apply to me. Right? Right? From 12 on, I decided there was no God. So that couldn't possibly be a factor in what's going on here in my misery. Right? So, I'm sorry I got off on a tangent, but I'm like that. So have I had that shift? That's all. Have I had the shift? That's all you need to make a beginning, because that's where you are. Not did the room fill up with light, and did the archangel come down, and, did I wake up in the morning with, Bill Wilson dust all over me and I'm a new man? No, it just, have I seen any shift? Okay, fine. If you have done to the best of your ability, honestly, the first 11 exercises, and you're keeping them going, you're there. So the spiritual experience awakening thing is a given, but if you want more, you got to do more. That's a law too. The hand that gives, that gathers. What you put in, you get out. Actually, what you put in, you get back about 10 times. So, I'm going to carry this message to alcoholics. Practice these principles in all my affairs is just simply do this across the board in your life. Don't just do it in your AA meeting, your NA meeting, your Al-Anon meeting. Do it across the board in your life. Do it with your kids. Do it with your husband. Do it at work. Do it with your coworkers. Practice these principles. What principles? Honesty, tolerance, patience, kindness, love, helpfulness, prayer, meditation, inventory. Practice those principles, right? Okay. So, the point. What's the message I'm carrying? What is the message? It's a good question, I think. And there's a lot of different messages. Meeting makers make it. That's a message. When I went to early AA, this is all my report, and it's totally flawed because it's my report. It's my view of what happened. And so there might be seeds of truth in it, but I'm sure that I distorted them to suit my position. So I go to a speaker meeting. I like speaker meetings because you don't have to participate. I do not like greeters. So for the new people, the way to avoid the greeters is come late, because the greeters are all up in the front rows, getting their attaboys. I like sitting near the door, like Brian and Davey. I like to be near the door. I like to know where the exits are, and I sit in the back. So I'm looking at the back of 120 heads. I'm looking at the back of your head. I'm looking at the back of your head, and I'm making up stories. Well, I don't know. I don't know any of you. I'm just looking at the back of your heads, and my head's making up stories. And then some Yahoo gets up to tell a story. And it sounds, this is what I heard. The short version of what I heard was, I stopped drinking, I went to AA, I got a sponsor, and life is great. What I turned that into was, I stopped drinking, I went to AA, I got a sponsor, and I don't have any more problems. Recovery is not the absence of problems. And you all know that because life continues on, and life seems to be amoral. It doesn't really care if you get some on you. So what the steps and what the principles and what the God relationship is doing for me is giving me a way to respond to life as it presents instead of be defined by it, be run over by it. So what's the message? Well, part of it is I don't drink anymore, but everyone in here that's a drinker knows that when you stop drinking, that's not the end of the deal. Because you stop drinking. This is called abstinence. You stop drinking, nothing changes. You have all the same thinking. You have all the same attitudes and perceptions that you had when you were drinking. And that's why life becomes very unsatisfactory. Restless, irritable, and discontented is what Silkworth describes us when we're sober. Right? Because I have no recovery, the pain of that, the pressure of that builds up, the dissatisfaction, the futility, the hopelessness. And I go, God, I need a break here. Well, what do I got to return to? The only thing I have to return to is the bottle. Because that's the only thing I know. That's the only thing I know that numbs me enough to be able to get through this thing that I'm calling my life. How many of you read the stories in the back of the book? Good. So, what are the stories about? The stories are not about how those people quit drinking. The stories about how they found God and established a relationship with that idea. And they're pretty rudimentary, a lot of them. You know, there's a couple that are more fleshed out than others, but that's what it is. That's what the reason the stories were at the back of the book, because when the book was created, there were no meanings. And that literally was the whole package. Here, if you have a drinking problem, you might want to read this book and do what it says to do. And we put the stories in the back so you can find someone like you that you can identify with. And you will. You won't maybe identify with the entire story and the entire person, but you'll identify with aspects of it. And that's what it was about. That's what it was for. So my home group, a lot of times new people come in and they go, God, I really like the vibe here. I really like the buzz. I really like the way this feels. And then they sit down and we go through the meeting. They get done and they go, God, this is so cool. This is really neat. What is this? And I say, that is God. And they go, oh, shit. Every one of them. What is that? I'm holding you. We, the people that are recovered in the meeting, are holding you in the consciousness of our recovery. And you feel it because it's energetic. Isn't it? It's energetic. Electromagnetic fields. There's an organization called Heart Mapping, and they map the electromagnetic fields of the organs in the body. And the biggest field is the heart. And it's about 8 feet out on each side. So that's 16 feet of energetic field. The number 2 one is the brain. And the brain is 60 times weaker. And all the other organs are weaker than the brain. So we're talking about that energy, that heart energy. Now we're sitting here and it's all mixed up, isn't it? It's all mixed up. Your junk's going with my junk and your junk, and we have a soup. It's the vibe. It's when you come into a room. It's when you come into a meeting. You go, I like the way that feels. That's that heart energy picking up the energy in the room. What's the dominant energy? I walk in here. I don't like it. I don't feel it. Right? It feels like a thought. It's not. And it's an intuitive response to what that heart is picking up. So, got to open the heart. Open the heart with the steps, right? So, here's the message, or a message. Your problem, this is me talking to a guy that thinks he wants me to sponsor him. Because they often change their mind. Your problem isn't that you're bad or broken, the problem is you're ignorant. You don't have the right information, and you don't have a way to apply it, okay? So let's start with the basic premise. You don't know shit. And we'll build from there. Because if you knew shit, you wouldn't be with me, right? You wouldn't be sitting here with me. So that usually is offensive to them, and they want to defend it, and then we start talking about their history, and they start understanding. So you got 3 divorces, you've been in and out of prison, you're on probation, you've got people looking for you all over the place, and you think you can still call the shots. That is the direct result, that is the outpicturing, that is the manifestation of your management style. So before we can get anywhere, we've got to answer the question, are you powerless over the substance? And are you powerless to manage your life to your satisfaction? And until we get those answered definitively for the person, there's nowhere to start. You know, a lot of people, you know what 2-steppers are? Yeah, come in, get excited, get sober, rah, 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 and they get really busy running around town doing stuff and helping people. Helping people. And so their program is you got to get busy in AA. Get busy in AA. Get in service, get busy in AA. Take meetings, run around, we do all this stuff. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, except that I don't know why I'm running around doing this. So I bring my crap into that milieu, and I'm going, do you like me now? Is this enough? Because what am I trying to do? I'm trying to belong, not fit. Fit is assess the situation and make the adjustments necessary to get through whatever the conversation or the situation is. Belonging is where you don't have to do any of that. Belonging is where you are accepted for who and what you are, warts and all. Right? Oftentimes, the first time we feel that is in the rooms. Because, you come in and you think, oh, I'm the worst potato in the patch, and then after a few months of hearing people's stories, you're going, God, I'm not so bad. and if it's the right meeting, you might even think, I might not be alcoholic, Because I only wrecked my car once, he wrecked his 6 times, And we're comparing the externals again. I need to find a way to compare my internals to the internals in the book, which is the emotional landscape of that text, right? The helplessness, the futility, the absolute frustration and ineffectiveness of the management. And the management's based on the thinking, right? So we get through that, and we get through the God thing, and the way we get through the God thing essentially is you don't have to believe anything right now. You just have to believe, 1, that you're not God, and 2, there's a possibility there might be a power greater than you that could restore you to something useful. Pretty minimal. I almost had to die to get it, but it was pretty minimal. I mean, for people that have their wheels on, it's pretty minimal. For me, this is also the plight of self-sponsorship, which is why I had to put a gun in my mouth to do a second step. But another story. So can I answer that question? Yes, I can. Then I make a decision in the third step to do what? To turn my will and my life. That's my thinking and my actions over the care of whatever that thing is I think might be there possibly. The mystery, the phenomenon, whatever it is. Because A, it doesn't ask you to declare anything specifically. It doesn't even say you have to believe in God. It just says you have to believe in something. And it says you can come up with your own conception. And so then I make this decision in the third step. And the decision is to turn my thinking and my actions in the direction of something better. So when you're dealing with an atheist or an agnostic, that something better is going to be anything but you. It's not going to be an ashtray or a tree or a light bulb. It's going to have to be a concept up here that we can get our head around enough to say, I'll go for that. So, excuse me. Sometimes, it says in the book, it's the experience in this room too, I'm sure. If I said, who's had a powerful third step experience, hands would go up. Well, let's do it. How many had a powerful third step experience? Just show of hands. Okay. How many didn't have much of an experience at all? Yeah. I don't even know if I did it. I mean, I sure didn't do it right. Right? But I love the AA stories. I love that stuff where, my sponsor Harold and I got underneath in the kitchen holding hands with a candle between us. We said that prayer, and I don't hold hands with men. And we said that prayer, and the room filled up with light, and my life took a 90-degree turn. And I love that. That's beautiful. But you know what? That's not the only way it happens. And when we give people the impression that this only happens one way, I think we do each other a great disservice. Because then I'm thinking, oh, I must not have done it right. I clearly did it right. I did it right enough. Okay? So, did I make the decision? I need to understand a little bit about will and life and all that. Are you willing to turn your thinking and your actions in a different damn direction? And then we can talk about some principles you can use. Tolerance, patience, helpfulness, kindness, compassion, empathy, whatever. Right? Okay, fine. We're good with that. Now we start deconstructing the thinking. And we deal with the restitution. Right? So what's happening slowly, in a biblical reference, revelation. Resurrection. We're blind, we see. We're deaf, we hear. We're lame, we walk. If you have alcoholism, you're not supposed to be alive. I mean, shit. And we got a room full of people, more or less, that are alive. I'm just saying, I don't know you all personally. But you know what I'm saying? It's a big deal. So what I'm trying to carry to this guy is there's a solution for things that you don't even know yet are problems. So how do I do that? There's a whole chapter on how to do that. Chapter 7, working with others. It tells me how to work with you. If you're new and you don't have a sponsor, study it, because it tells you how to be worked with. So this is how I weed out the baloney in the fellowship. That's how I became a student of the big book, if you will. It wasn't out of virtue. It wasn't because I wanted a new life. I wanted to know who I could trust with what they were saying. So chapter 7 is an important chapter because it tells me how to approach you. It says, you never talk down to an alcoholic. So when I hear some guy calling a sponsor, hey, knucklehead, I'm going, oh, okay. Because, I don't want to be treated that way. I won't stand for it. I don't know about you. And it doesn't tell them it doesn't say anywhere in that chapter that I'm supposed to tell you what to do. You'll call me at 6 in the morning before you pee and brush your teeth and don't forget to hit your knees, say your prayers and make your bed. Oh. Would you show me where that is in the book, please? Sir? No. And for some of us, that works really good. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying we got another box now we're in, conformity, compliance. And so I'm gonna hit all my marks so my sponsor gives me that attaboy, right? Because I want to be his favorite. I don't want to be one. I want to be his favorite, right? I don't want to be just a sponsee. I want to be the one. So here I am hung up on another thing, approval, social instinct, my need for approval. And so I conform and comply, but I don't change. And then all of a sudden at 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, the wheels fly off and Roger gets drunk and everyone goes, God, he was such a good AA. What happened? There's always a reason that happens. It's not happenstance. It's not an accident. There's a reason it happens. I work with a lot of guys that are chronic relapsers, and they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know why it keeps happening. And when you sit down with them for 10 minutes, you can deconstruct what they call their program, and you can put them right in front of what they're not doing. Now the question is, are you willing to do that? If the answer is no, fine, I understand. See you later. If the answer is yes, I can help you with that. So in that chapter, it's not about it's not about telling what you do, it's about telling you what my experience with that is. And the weight and the depth of our experiences is what wins them over. And the way it sounds is similar to this, like, I don't want to believe this is true. I don't want to believe this thing really works because I'm really invested in the fact that I'm going to AA and it's not working either. And so then I can say I've tried everything, right? And I hadn't tried anything, right? I just sat in meetings with a one-step program. And this guy's going to help me see this. So also, if you've done this and had that experience, one of the byproducts of that is you want to help someone. You want to help someone. It's natural. It's natural. I want to share what I found. That's great. But if you're a two-stepper, you can't share anything. Or if you're a three-stepper, if you're a 3.4-stepper, if you're a 1, 2, 4, 7-stepper. I mean, do you get what I'm saying? So I heard things like, if you've been sober 30 minutes longer than him, you can help him. Oh. I'm telling you, if I'm sitting with this dude and he's 30 minutes sober than me, I'm not even talking to him. He's obviously bad news, right? I think what they meant was you can offer them some strength and hope, but you can't offer them recovery because you don't have it. Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't see the value in having a guy with 20 days in one step running around sponsoring people. What is that going to look like, right? But I want to help. Now I got to figure out when is my help not helping. And well, here, I'll see. I don't think I'm making it up. So here it is, conveniently bookmarked. It's not the matter of giving this in question, okay? We want to give, that's not a problem. But when and how, that is a question. that often makes the difference between failure and success, his and mine. Not just successfully helping you get sober, but successfully keeping me on track and improving my experience. The minute we put our work on a service plane, and this is not general service, this is not your GSR and all the stuff we do at a group level. What it's saying is the minute I start doing for you what you can do for me, no. Said it backwards. You're not listening. I just misspoke. The minute I do for you what you can do for yourself, you become reliant on me instead of relying upon God. Because that is the whole deal, isn't it? The whole purpose of the steps, the book, the meetings, the sponsor, the fellowship, and all the stuff we do, the workshops and the conferences and the roundups, that whole thing is in place to do one thing: allow you, the practitioner, to find, establish, and to grow a relationship with the God of your understanding. And we get lost in that. We get lost. We're a 12 and 12 group. We're a big book group. We're sober bowling, and we get lost in the activities, and we don't get lost in the recovery. So that's a deal. So here's a question, and it looks like this. I'll give you an example. Give it two. Guy comes up, he's unemployed, and he's a new guy I'm working with, and he says, I'm hungry. I give him $20 and say, go buy some food. Thanks, man. And the next day I see him, he goes, I'm hungry. I said, what'd you do with the 20 I gave you? He said, I went and bought a nice meal and a pack of smokes. Oh, well, let's go to the grocery store. I'll buy you a bag of groceries. Oh, no, that's cool. I'm fine. Right? You find out if they're playing you by their actions. And the only way you can get it is through your experience. So you're going to get screwed. Expect it. You're going to make mistakes. There's this guy whining. He's going through a divorce, like, not fun. And he was living in a men's sober house and whining about how he could just get a job. And his wife's got the car, and it's such a screw deal. And so I bought him an unlimited ride bus pass. Now it says in here, if you're going to help people out financially, make sure you can afford it. Don't spend money you don't have. Don't spend your grocery money to buy Bobo groceries, right? But if you got some extra money, fine. So I bought him an unlimited ride bus pass. I said, there you go, man. You can ride anywhere in town on the bus line for a month for free. Oh, thanks, man. And I didn't see him for a week or two. 3-4 weeks came by, and he shows up again. So you get a job? No. I need another bus pass. And I said, no. You just had a month. What you just found out, it cost me $50, and I got $50. I don't care. But what you just found out is you really don't want a job. You want to whine. That's not going to fly. You get what I'm saying? So I need to help, but I also need to let him have his experience. Clamors for this or that, claiming they can't master alcohol until their material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth. Job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply don't stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence upon God. We have been full of false dependencies our whole life. If I just get the right job, if I can just make the right amount of money, if I can just get a new car, if I can just find the right man or woman, if I can just find the right dog, then I won't feel like this. We've been doing that our whole lives. Doesn't work. Burn the idea in the consciousness of this person that they can get well regardless of anyone or anything. I had a text the other day from a guy I've never met, and he's living in Bismarck. And he wrote me a little text, and he said, I have been listening to your CDs, your big books, and I really like it. I've had 9 treatments, and this is the first time I've ever heard this explained the way I can get it. I said, well, thank you. Nice words. Go in peace. Good. Thanks. And then he sent me another text, and he said, I'm going to court tomorrow, and I'm looking at 5 years. And he appears to have made a start in recovery. And I said, well, here, I'll tell you something. You can do this in prison. You can do this anywhere. So if you really want this, you can thrive in prison. So he said, well, will you say a prayer for me? I said, sure, I'll say a prayer for you, but I don't know what God's will is. I'm going to pray for God's will. I'm not going to pray for your will. I didn't tell him that part. But that's what I'm thinking. I'll pray for God's will. Okay. Then I get a text the next day, and he got 2 years probation and a 5-year state sentence. So if he doesn't do anything naughty for 2 years, he stays out of prison. And so he's in this sober living environment. I'm saying that's good. And he says, oh, praise the Lord and all this stuff. And I'm saying that's great. That's mercy. That's a gift, right? Yeah, that's God's gift. And I said, now, what you do with that is your response to God's gift. So be smart. Drill down, blah, blah, blah. So, example. So I'm establishing a relationship with a guy, and my relationship is not based on getting him out of debt or getting his marriage fixed. My basis for our conversation is to help him find this power, and a lot of those things will be addressed peripherally as we go through that process, right? I want to help him. You know, and some of you know this, when you first get sober, you get really the rah-rah stage of conversion. Let's get sober! Give me an A! Give me an A! What do you got? Right? So I'm sponsoring all these guys. I'm working with these guys. I think I'm sponsoring them. They said I'm sponsoring them. We're doing this thing. And I'm exhausting myself because I'm calling them, okay, pick you up at 6, pick you up at 6:45, pick you up, you know, rah, 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 rah. And when I stop doing it, no one goes and does anything. And I had to realize, this is when is my help not helping. If I want you to get sober more than you want to get sober, we got an imbalance. And I'm going to exhaust myself trying to help you when you don't want the help I'm offering. And now I'm back to the instinct. You know, I want to be helpful. That's nice. And I also want you to like me. And I also want the guys in the meeting to think that I'm really good AA. And, you know, it rolls out in a bunch of different smarmy ways. So I am establishing a spiritual relationship with this guy. Whether he knows it or not is irrelevant. I know it. For me, it's a sacred contract. That's a big word. It's holy for me. I know it's not for him. That's not the point. But I need to find a place to engage with him, a very high place, because I'm going to invest a lot of hours and time and energy in this person, and I want to come from the right place. And I want to do it well. So here's the covenant. This is the condition. Both you and the new man or woman must walk day by day in the spirit of spiritual progress. There's the qualifier. Are we working on your spiritual progression? Are we working on spiritual progress? Are we working on your problem with women? Your problem with money? You know, we've got the priorities wrong. And I have to help them see that. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. It doesn't say for who. It doesn't say for who. I've seen remarkable things happen with guys that I've sponsored, and I've seen tragic things happen. And it takes time for this to roll out. And over the years, I look back, and every one of those things was a gift for me. Because I learned something from his unwillingness. I learned something from his mistake. Because I know it, because I was intimate with this person, and I knew the story. I knew the backstory. And I knew exactly what he ran up against that he would not face. And I watched him go out the door. Right? So it calls the question for me. This is the question in 6 and 7. Is there something you still cling to? Something you still cling to? That's going to be problematic. It's going to take some honesty. Because I'm doing everything right, and I don't feel so good. Everyone's telling me I look good. Everyone's telling me I sound good. Everyone's patting me on the back, so I can't tell them how scared I am. I can't tell them how empty I feel inside, because then I won't be a good AA and they won't like me. So you see, I'm trapped in that prison, my neediness, my need, false dependencies, my need for your approval, my need for your acceptance, my need to belong. Right? All fine instincts when they're in the right proportion. When we look back, we'll realize that things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands, or maybe the steps' hands for the beginner, were better than anything we could have planned. That sounds like a big deal. I don't know about you, but isn't there a part of you that when you first come in and they go, well, here's what we do here, and these are the steps, and I'm Harry, I'll be your new sponsor. And, you know, and they're saying, oh, it's going to be better than you can imagine. I have a pretty good imagination. I have a pretty good imagination. And here's the balk. It's not that I don't want this. What I want is I want to know what it's going to look like if I go for it. You know, it's like if you were a drug buyer. I was a drug buyer, and you're going to buy a bunch of something you want to taste before you buy it. You want to make sure it's good. You don't have to do that with bonded whiskey because you know it's good. You don't have to go to a tasting party. You know, oh, no. Give me 2 quarts of that, gallon of that, and a case of beer just in case. Right? But with drugs, it's different. I like a taste. And that's really what my thing was, is I'd like to see what this new life is going to look like before I sign up. I'd like to see if I'm really going to like this new me. You know, what's the fear? Will I recognize me? Will I still have my personality? Will I still have my sense of humor? You know, and there's a whole bunch. Will I ever have a relation? You know, so where are we? We're in the future, right? And it's just a monkey fest. It's a monkey fest, and the monkeys are chewing on me, and they want me to listen to every little squawk and thing they do. Look at her! Ah! Ah! Look at him! Ah! Need more money! Ah! We're not safe! You know, and it just goes on and on. That's the noise in my head. And if that's what I listen to, I'm driven by the instincts demanding to be satisfied by things that do not have the power to satisfy them. Does that make sense? Damn. Why is it so hard to get then? It's, you know, the simple program, right? Does that make sense? Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Does that make sense? Uh-huh. I work with these felons. I work with a number of felons, and my riff to them when I leave, when they're there on Mondays, I'll go, no felonies, boys. And they go, yeah, right, boss. And I'll come back, and a week or two later, I'll see them on the porch talking about the trouble they just got out of jail. And I said, no felonies. They said, it's a misdemeanor. Or a gross misdemeanor. Which is gives me a little more street cred. It's a gross misdemeanor. No, it takes a while. This is a thinking disorder. It takes a while. So they're saying, you're going to have to trust us on this. It's going to be better than you can imagine. I don't trust you. I have trust issues. Right? So where's the taste? The taste is the recovered men and women in your meetings. It's that guy with a year, with 5 years, with 10 years, with 20 years, with 30 years, with 40 years. That's your taste. That's the proof it works. You can't find that out unless you're there. And then, when you're there, you have to open your frickin' ears and your heart to feel it. And I watched. I'm a watcher. I'm an observer of men. Because I don't trust those bastards. You know, because I'm not trustworthy. So I don't trust anyone. I figure you're all like me. And I'm watching, I'm listening to this guy, and I'm watching him for a couple months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and I'm hearing him go through life. I'm hearing the stuff that's going on in his life, and I'm watching him, and he's laughing. He's not wringing his hands. He's not all torqued out about what's the result going to be, you know, and it's not fun. But they all said the same thing. It's prayer, meditation, inventory. That's what gets me through this. And I kept hearing that, and I kept seeing the results. That's the taste. So, some of us say, I don't believe and I don't have faith. Right? But I believe old Mel. I've been watching him. I believe Mel. So I'm going to do what Mel did, and I'm going to see. When I finally commit to put myself through those steps, that is purely an act of faith. Unknowable, unprovable, unseeable, unsmellable, just totally intangible. I'm going off, oh, Mel. So I do have faith. I do have belief. I do have love and worship. It's just in the wrong things. And it takes time. We're so into, I want it now. Actually, I want it 15 minutes ago, right? Recovery doesn't work that way. I have lessons that I got at 10 years, at 20 years, at 25 years. I have ahas that are going on almost all the time. Revelation, the reveal. The book says more will be revealed. Well, it will be revealed if you stay in the game. It'll be revealed if you stay in the process. It will not be revealed if you sit on what you've done so far and you coast, because there's no coasting here. The monkeys say, coast. You worked hard. Let's take a break, right? And the evidence for the break is how far I've come. And that's the trip. That's the trip right there, how far I've come. I haven't done squat. It's how far I've been brought. Do you feel the difference? Because if I'm talking in terms of I, first person, I'm thinking I'm doing this. I am not doing this. When I do my life, I end up in a pool of blood with kidney and liver damage and divorce, restraining orders, and warrants in a half dozen states, and a bunch of bad checks, and some bikers looking for me. That's what happens when I run my life. So I haven't done anything here except become a participant, a willing participant in the process. Eventually you find that placing yourself in God's hands, or this process of change, the 12 steps, you'll produce something better than you could have thought. Follow the dictates of a higher power. Dictates, I don't like that word, do you? Do you like to be, I don't like to be dictated to. No. That's like being told how to drive. I don't like that either. Don't dictate to me, right? Follow the guidelines. Follow the rules. Participate in the process. That's what it's saying. God's rules, not man's rules. God's rules. Try and practice honesty. Try and practice patience. Try and practice compassion, empathy. Try not to be so condemning of everybody and everything around you. Go ahead and make the assessment. The judgment's not the problem. It's the judgment plus the punishment that's the problem. The serenity prayer is all about judging. What I control, what I don't control. That's a judgment. But there's no condemnation. You get what I'm saying? Okay. And the promise is you'll presently live in a new and a wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. That's a big promise. In the spiritual experience appendix, the promise rolls out like this. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of facing their problems in the light of our experience can recover. It's a wholesale promise. That's a big damn promise. And there's conditions to the promise, provided you don't close your mind to all spiritual concepts, which means, Roger, as an atheist, you ain't going to make it. You might not drink, but you are never going to get to the peaceful valley. Right? And then it says, the only thing that can defeat you and I is belligerence and intolerance, the closed mind. That's my attitude. That's my approach. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's a price to be paid here. And Bill said it in his story. When he got sober out of the hospital after he did the stuff Ebby suggested to him, he said, this is a pretty accessible approach, but it's also pretty drastic. It means the destruction of my self-centeredness. He didn't say it means I never get to drink again. He didn't say my partying days are over. He got it. How long did it take me? How long did it take you to figure out that's what this game is? Dismantling the selfish self-centeredness. And if you know Bill and you know the history, he worked on it his whole life. He had some big problems with some of his instincts, right? So, I'll give you this. I know this works. And I know if you have even a modicum of willingness, that you're working with someone, it'll work. And so in the beginning, we're putting out fires and we're doing all this, daily calamitous stuff. But after we get into the process, and this person has a prayer and a meditation life and an inventory life, the conversations are changing. And sometimes it's kind of a rude awakening kind of change. Like you call me up and say, I'm having a problem, I'm really depressed and I don't know why. Did you inventory? No. Did you pray? No. Go do that and call me back. Because I taught you how to do that. This is when is my help not helping. I do you a disservice. In the beginning, I got to untie the knots for you because you're insane. But once, well, it's the truth. Because you have no idea. When you say, why are you afraid? I have no idea. Well, later on we go, what part of self caused the fear? Did your need for approval cause the fear? Did your insecurity around money cause the fear? Oh. But he doesn't know that yet. But when he knows it, then it's incumbent on me to put him in a position where he has to practice it. How can you? My job is not to fix you. My job, really, I'm trying to teach you how to think along these lines, the recovery lines, and how to discern the serenity prayer, how to tell the difference between an idea that's going to support you and an idea that's going to kick you in the butt. Maybe not instantly. It might take a month or 2 or 3 or 6. But it's not going to be good because it's a violation of God's laws, the higher principles. So then we go and we get to the point where the person has established that contact with the Creator, and it looks like a miracle. It's a process. The miracle for me is that any of us ever get here. That's the miracle, because none of us should be here. That's a process. And it says if you do that process to the best of your ability and stay at it, you won't drink and your life will get better. It doesn't say get better. It says change. And it changed. You know? It changed. And then it got better. But it takes time. So this idea of the face you had before you were born, this idea, the fundamental idea of God in you, in me, this divinity within man that Jesus talked about, that's what I'm taking you home to. What you came from. That's what I'm doing. And if I'm lucky, God will use me to help you do that. So I ran across this thing by Francis. I liked it. It was an address he did to his monks. And I think it describes, in a general way, what we do with sponsorship. Before you speak of peace, you must first have it in your heart. Before I'm going to help you recover, I got to recover. We've been called to heal wounds, to unite what's fallen apart, and to bring home any who've lost their way. At the end of the day, we're just walking each other home. That's it. We're just walking each other home. Thanks. Mm.